has the war in Ukraine really brought China and Russia closer? Let's not put them together as allies because they're not military allies. But how has this conflict brought them together?
China seems to realize, or see now rather, that the longer the conflict goes on for, the more difficult its own security environment becomes. Let's also note that in recent weeks, President Putin and his predecessor Medvedev have both been warning about the worst case scenario of Russia's Balkanization if it loses its special operation. Now, there is no indication it's going to lose, but the very fact that Russia began talking about this scenario, about how the West wants to Balkanize Russia, note the rhetoric coming after the balloon incident. It appears to me that Russia was signaling to China that, you know what, if we go down, we don't think we're going to go down, but if NATO throws all of its military industrial capacity at us in Ukraine in the coming months, in this case by giving Ukraine modern weapons, whether or not they're armed by Ukrainians or NATO servicemen disguised as volunteers, mercenaries, or whatever else, if they shift the military strategic dynamics against us, God forbid, they're not saying it will happen, but if it does, we risk Balkanization, which is going to completely destabilize your northern periphery, okay? And that, I think, contributed, if you look at the failure of the New Détente through the balloon incident, the rise of hardliners in the PLA, which occurred at the same time as the rise of anti-Chinese hardliners in the Pentagon, and NATO openly talking about wanting to Balkanize Russia, and Russia finally echoing these worst-case scenarios, saying, hey, they're worst case, they're fringe, but hey, we're going to talk about them because it could happen in the worst-case scenario. China seems to have considered, you know what, if NATO defeats Russia in Ukraine, that's going to directly affect our national security. Amidst all this, let's not forget, according to reports both from Taiwanese and American media, the U.S. has a backlog of $19 billion worth of arms they want to give to Taiwan. They haven't been able to keep up these orders because they've been prioritizing Ukraine, but $19 billion is still a lot. So China realizes we want to talk with the United States, but we're still being militarily contained.